Hi, Pranoto. It's very nice to meet
Hi,
you.
Vinita. Thank you.
So, I just wanted to begin by just getting to know a little bit about what you do right now and what are your what are the various things that you're involved in at the moment.
So I'm currently at McGill. I'm O'Brien Fellow to do a PhD in law. So
Okay.
previously I was here as well as an O'Brien Fellow in resident. So now I'm doing for a PhD because I'm thinking about or like have a chance to sit down and write in a much more comprehensive way because in the beginning I never thought that I will I need uh, 80,000 words or more to write what I have in mind.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but then now I think I need to sit down and write as comprehensive as possible about the thing that keep that makes me start in this path.
Right. So, following from that, what is that made you start along this path?
So
Yeah.
what makes me start along this path is that it's kind of personal to me
Right.
because my so it's a little bit embarrassing. I mean, not a little bit actually. It's a lot. So
Right.
so my dad
Okay.
asked me to do to study law. So that to study law is like the only path for me to do uh, like a like a university level studies
Right.
because my dad thinks I'm stupid enough to do economic or some other real
Okay.
discipline. So he thinks law is the perfect side for me to learn because it doesn't require much intellectual uh,
But it does, right?
so because people think that study law is just about you memorize the code or the statute and also that's what I thought but and then when I entered the law school and it's true, so you don't have to do demanding intellectual tasks.
Right.
So that's the thing. So when I got into the law school, and so I started to think why do we need law? I
Right.
mean, at this level, at this higher education uh, program, because if it's just memorizing or some formulaic mode of understanding, I think we don't need law school.
Right.
So that set me into the path where I am now.
Okay. And how did you get into migrant rights and migrant issues specifically?
Right. So it's connected to that. When I was in the law school, when I was studying law, because most of the material, reading material, and in law school, it's in Indonesia in particular. I mean, the way I see it, it's really hard to read. So I don't
Mm,
really understand what they're saying. Even if there are some book that can be read, it's really really basic. It's really really like an elementary thing that you need. So
right.
that set me to the path. I read some book on international law, even
Mm,
though it's written in foreign language. To me, I think it's easier for me to understand international law.
right. Yeah.
So after I read some more about international law, I saw that there are some development that can be used for the interest of the local, especially people who are I think vulnerable. In this case, is the Indonesian who work abroad and in and strangely, I mean, not strangely, but I came from a city in Indonesia, like a poor city in Indonesia that most of its populations work in Saudi Arabia, and they experience lots of human rights abuse. So I think that probably with this, new development in international law, where international law becoming more and more, responsive to
Right.
the situations of the, the plight of the individual. So I think we need to seize that chance.
Right.
So, and then, so I start to, tinkering around with this idea, and then I try to reach out to some of the, like a, like a mainstream NGO, and people just dismissed it as, like a really, it doesn't
Right.
really, good idea.
Okay.
So that's when I decided to establish this NGO.
Oh, okay. Right.
So basically, I never been a leader or whatever, but
Okay.
that's the
But
history.
the NGO is the Institute of Migrant Rights, right?
Yes,
Which
yes,
you began.
yeah.
Okay, so that's like an NGO. So could you tell us a bit about that? Like, what is the work that I think there are various things that you'll do, like the International Legal Clinic and all of those
Right.
things. So could you tell us a bit about that work?
So as I mentioned earlier, so I think we have a multiple issue. First, there's the problem with the education system,
Okay.
where I think the law school don't functions, properly. So the reproductions of knowledge is because everything that is taught in the law school, I think they're all too like superficial, and it doesn't really connect to the what the society needs.
Right.
So it's more like like you have to go through that process. That's all. That's nothing else.
Right.
So so it's more like so based on that situation, so I have this idea about this Institute for Migrant Rights. So it tries to take on all of these multiple issues that I think as important.
Okay, right.
So education. So that's why we have this International Legal Clinic. So International Legal Clinic is try to bridge between how you work at the same time taking advantage from the uh, from the uh, from the maturing scholarly work in international law or in some other foreign country, and also at the same time you use it for the benefit of the practical situation. So it's kind of like a connecting between these two. So that's why we established this clinic. And yeah, so that's why and also at the same time we also publish a series of books in in Bahasa, in Indonesian language, to encourage and also to promote a more broader view, or more like invite the Indonesian scholar to be more adventurous in terms of thinking about a legal question or legal issue by looking at others' experience.
Right.
So basically that's the why we have this a variety of initiative. And the last one is because I think since based on these publications for the Indonesians, because at the same time I also want to introduce a not so bad quality of scholarship. So
Right.
that's the kind of scholarship that we're trying to publish. But at the same time, the reality shows us that, probably reality is too hard for it, so that's why I come up with probably, we shouldn't limit our activities. So we should just, expand the activity. And as a result, as an answer to that question is, I decided to establish this a journal.
Journal, okay.
Yes.
Right.
So that's the evolution of
the center. Okay. So
Yeah.
you first began with the idea that you wanted scholars to think beyond, to use in the evolving literature and scholarship in international law to
Right.
address human rights issues in Indonesia.
Right.
And then you went on to set up the International Legal Clinic for more engagement with these things, with the scholarship.
Yes.
And that's how you went on to start the journal, as a more active way of engaging with that.
Right.
Okay, that's really great. So the issues that you are focused on, are there is it generally human rights, or are there specific human rights issues that the journal, your institute overall, covers?
On the journal, we try to be, more accommodated to a more human right related issue, but we also need to be, mindful about the reality that not so many people interested in human rights, and also the fact that, we are competing in a very, very, a crowded market. Cause so, for example, people who, a scholar who have more established, uh, they certainly don't want to publish with our journal. It's just so, and also at the same time, so based on this, the reality, and also the, our aspirations to be, better, not just about, so this is the, situations that we have now.
Right.
So yeah,
because you're a small journal.
Compromise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. At the moment. Okay.
Yes.
Right. You want good quality scholarship, but because you're a smaller journal, you're just starting. I mean, how long has the journal been around?
It's been, so it was started in 2014.
Okay.
But yeah, but I mean, but now, so this is how we navigate between, between idealism and also the practical situations. But so far, I think we have managed, we have recognitions from the associations of the American law schools. So,
Right.
and also, so
Okay.
I think we're growing.
Yeah, that's very great. Yeah, especially for a homegrown initiative, must be definitely quite hard.
Yeah. It's really challenging. And also the thing is, there is also, I think, a substantive issue that I need to raise about this. So it is not, my concern is actually, it's based on the fact that, all the thing that drives me to build this NGO and end up with this journal and this part is that my major concern that animates all this project is, why human right, especially the way I see it in Indonesia, is still, even among human rights scholar, among human rights lawyers, human right is still being viewed as constitutional right. So so that's why we have all these thing, trying to bring in more and more and also the way I use this, actually this international law clinic as a proxy to introduce the local that uh, actually, if you have human right, if you accept human right as a human right, not as a, constitutional right, that
Right.
yeah, and not just for exclusively for your national. Actually, you can get something in return, that is your population or your fellow citizen who work in Saudi Arabia or wherever can get the same treatment.
Mm.
So that's
Right.
other message, I think.
Is that link in with what you had written about how traditional scholarship from the global south, traditional legal scholarship usually looks at very statist perspectives? Does
Yes,
that link in with that
yes,
anyway?
yes.
Okay.
I think that's what, yeah, that's one of the issue that I raised. So that's why I'm straddling between the the grim empirical reality, and
Right.
also I at the same time because this kinds of thing need a scholarly forum.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing that drive me to write in like a scholarly article, that kinds of stuff. So, and also I see that in the third world, I mean in the global south, where we still haven't managed to make a clear distinctions between what is state interest and what is their population's interest. So that makes people, especially the lower class, becomes more and more vulnerable. For example, like people who work as a migrant worker in Saudi Arabia, mostly they are like working in a blue collar.
Right. Right.
Uh, yeah. So
That
that's
makes it
my,
more vulnerable as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you've also said about how you want, like, how through your work you'd like to introduce the Indonesian public to the benefits of globalization. And I just wanted to know how you thought that might address the issues of migrants.
Right. So basically, that reflects my frustrations with the you know with the post-colonial state.
Right.
Because the way I see it, because I come from you know like uh, like a lower social background. Uh, like my family member also work in Saudi Arabia as a driver,
Okay.
and I grew up in that kind of community. I saw that state when they claim that they fight for the interest of their national. I don't see that they speak for their you know like the constituent that they need to support.
Right. Right.
So basically, so for example, like the probably like like the protectionist policy, or sometimes when they just get embarrassed because because so many of our population work in abroad,
Mm.
and they have human right abuse, they experience human right abuse, and they think that the solution is just, and this solution is supported by all NGO. So they just said that why don't we just stop sending our people to Saudi Arabia. But the problem is it's much worse than that. So for example, like it's much more complicated than that. So for example, like in my hometown, migration allow the populations or the student to to feel or to apply for a university level education. So
Right.
basically, university in my hometown, certainly, that's not the kind of like a fancy university that can get you. But I mean, especially for women,
Right.
if you have money and your family have money to support you to do more years in school, it gives you an opportunity to to be more independent, because you can delay your marriage, or
Right.
that kinds of
Yeah.
thing,
Understand.
right? It's not that. So that's the so yeah, basically that's the
Yeah.
issue.
Right. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Also, I wanted to talk a bit about the other magazine, the other journal that you're a part of, the Journal of Migration, the International Journal of Migration, which you're on the editorial board. So I
Yes.
just wanted to sort of know how did you happen to join this other platform, and like what are the kinds of scholarship that you are seeing, and what would you like to see more of, and yeah, something about that.
So basically what uh, I think the reasons why uh, the founding editor asked me to join their board, because it's very rare to find like a like a scholar who work on that issue in on migrations, who based in in Southeast Asia,
Hmm.
and also who happen to be not Australian or some from some other rich
Right.
country.
How has your experience been like on the editorial board, and what are the kinds of scholarship that you're seeing coming into the magazine? And
I For me, I'm more interested in seeing, and it's not that much, because I think we need to find some scholarly work that uh really has passion to to not just uh, uh putting your idea into a paper, but it is also
right,
about how your paper can connect to the like a real issue, and what kind of solutions probably if you have, or at least make us not just among the academic, but it also about for other than outside from the academia, to understand what is really going on with this today's world.
right. Oh yeah, that's right. Um, and also, yeah, leading on from that, how do you balance like legal scholarship, scholarly work, and practice? Do you still practice? And how do you, and also trying to influence policy with your work? So, like, I mean, this is sort of like a tricky space, right? Like,
Right.
do you devote your attention to writing or practice, or like, yeah? So, could you tell us a bit about like how you're able to juggle that?
Right. Certainly, I'm not able to do that. So,
I mean,
but
it is difficult.
yes,
Yeah.
but so the way I I try to make myself present in this, three different world, is by, for example, when I write or when I think about something, so I have to make my work connect to these three
Right.
area, these three world, so people can take advantage of, what am I. So for example, if you are a policymaker, you can just, if you read my work, oh, you know he's saying this thing, and he suggests this thing.
Right.
So yeah, so that's how I try to.
You're saying you should write in a way such that people can take away certain actionable points
Right.
from,
Yes.
yeah. And so my that brings me to the last question, but perhaps the question that I should have like touched upon earlier. is like, what is your thesis topic now? Like, what is your area of research?
Oh, it's also connect to the to that idea about, you know, about why non-citizen or non-citizen having a hard time to be, you know, accepted in a certain country.
Right.
So that leads me to this to what I'm doing now, which is, I think, you know, international law certainly has its own limit. You can't rely on international law. So that's the reasons why I now try to understand about the constitutions. So especially the written constitutions. So now I'm working on a, you know, I'm trying to make sense, because the way I see it, based on my research, I think the traditions, as a traditions, the written constitutions, although it was, you know, as the brainchild of enlightenment that supposedly to nudge the society to a better, or to be more, you know, human way in ordering society, but in reality it's failed. So for example, like today, you know, almost every country has its constitutions, but that doesn't mean, you know, you have human right, or you have, you know, things that are good normally that you find, you know. And so I see that, you know, because constitution, so my research is about, so it also, there are other functions of constitution, of the written constitutions, that, you know, enable all of these things happen. But the thing is about the constitution is, because constitutions is a statement, right? It's not just about legal instrument. It's a statement that you are a nation.
Right.
So by claiming that you are a nation like the colonial power, for example, it means that you are different.
Right. Okay.
So because of that, I think constitution at the same time justified.
Okay. Justifies a certain nationalist.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Right. You mean it could also be used for creating a very rigid identity of what a nation is and who belongs to that nation?
Yes. So that's why in Indonesia, for example, or in the United States, people tend to be irrational about their constitutions. They defend their constitution. They have a strong attachment about constitution. So I recently conduct a survey among the Indonesian students. Most of foreign observer about Indonesian constitutions, they are basically claim that the Indonesian constitutions doesn't make sense. It is, you know, confusing. But based on my survey, most of Indonesian law students think Indonesian constitution is understandable, and this is the best constitutions for Indonesia. Indonesia cannot thrive without these constitutions. So basically that's what I'm trying to do now.
All right. That's fascinating. And yeah, that brings me to the end of the interview. And thank you so much for taking time to speak to us.
Thank you, Vinita.
Thank you. Thank you.